Want to open it?
Nope, I'm good.
That's fungus. Will mutate and spread.
Jesus Christ!
It's a cold day here in Calgary, Canada.
Cold out there. It's cold out there. 'Cause it's cold out there. It's cold out there. 'Cause it's cold out there. It's cold out there.
Who left the fridge open?
And a good day to review Cold Storage, the new film based on a novel of the same name by screenwriter David Koepp.
Koepp. How do you pronounce it?
What? How?
It's pronounced.
Koepp.
Yes, the David Koepp, who famously wrote the screenplay for Steven Spielberg's adaptation of Michael Crichton's novel Jurassic Park back in 1993. You may have heard of that little film. It's a little dinosaur film. But as we know now, it was pretty well received.
That is one big pile of shit.
Well, what about an original story by Koepp, an actual published novel? How would it fare when translated to the big screen? Let's find out, shall we, with Cold Storage. The story in Cold Storage begins way back in 1979, when the space station Skylab is decommissioned by NASA and disintegrates. Various bits and pieces and chunks of debris re-enters the atmosphere and fall back to Earth, landing mostly in Western Australia and the Indian Ocean. Now, I grew up in Sydney, Australia, and the story of Skylab's fall to Earth was daily news at the time, similar to the story of the satellite dish in rural Australia that aided in bringing pictures of the Apollo 11 moon landing to the rest of the world in 1969. It was a pretty exciting moment for the young country.
Let's put another shrimp on the barbie.
But back to Cold Storage. One of those bits of Skylab debris lands in a small outback town in Western Australia, whose inhabitants mysteriously died due to a parasite brought down from, you guessed it, space.
Careful, Burke.
So what does NASA and the US military do? They freeze the parasite and transport it back to the US to be stored at an underground facility in the state of Kansas. Over time, however, the site suffers from neglect and a storage company takes over the place. What can go wrong, right?
We're gonna be fine.
Cut to the present day, where Travis Tea Cake Meacham, played by Joe Keery, and Naomi Williams, played by Georgina Campbell, are employed at the storage site. One night, while investigating a mysterious beeping sound in the basement, they discover the leak of the previously frozen parasite, which of course is looking to spread. And their night is then complicated by visits from Naomi's ex-boyfriend, as well as a group of thieves led by their work colleague, Griffin, played by Gavin Spokes. Again, what could go wrong, right?
Iceberg, right ahead!
Meanwhile, in North Carolina, bioterror expert Robert Quinn, played by Liam Neeson, who investigated the Western Australia incident years earlier, is called in to help, together with his partner, Trini, played by Leslie Manville. Will they be able to neutralize the parasite before it spreads and decimates humanity? What do you think?
I say we take off and nuke the entire site from orbit.
Now, if it seems I gave away the whole story, well, that's just a setup. I don't mind admitting that I had high hopes or elevated expectations for Cold Storage, especially after watching Sam Raimi's Send Help a couple of weeks ago, and seeing a relatively high Rotten Tomatoes score for Cold Storage, which was just around 80%, which is pretty good for a horror film. But the film turns out to be a disappointment. It's billed as a horror comedy, but there are few moments of horror, and worse still, there are even fewer of laughter. I think I smiled twice and maybe chuckled once, and a half-hearted chuckle at that. Look, it's not boring, but it seems to lack ambition, whether constrained by the writing or the budget. It could have been a horror comedy in the vein of a Sam Raimi Evil Dead film, or even James Gunn's Slither from 2006. But alas, it doesn't quite live up to that. It doesn't help that after the opening sequence set in Western Australia, the narrative does take a while to get the story going. And then once the horror and the violence and the gore starts, the film's almost reaching its climactic conclusion.
Is it over?
Part of my frustration with the pacing is that the story continually switches between our leads dealing with the threats at the storage facility and then over to Neeson's needlessly long journey to get to Ground Zero, which is the storage facility. Such that when Neeson finally arrives, the film seems to only have about 20 minutes left. If I had written the script, I would have had Neeson join our two leads much earlier in the film and focused solely on activity at the storage facility. That way I could build the atmosphere and introduce more scary and outrageous situations for our team to get into and to have to extricate themselves from. That could have been a fun and fantastic watch.
Now let's rock and roll.
Rock and roll!
As for the so-called comedy, our leads are game, but there's not much to play off in the script. And Neeson seems to be certainly parodying his action hero persona. But he fails miserably. Look for a better script next time, Liam. If this is to be fun and frightening, then go all the way, man.
You go all the way. Okay?
The acting in the film is almost non-existent. Not that I'm expecting some Oscar-worthy performances from a relatively low-budget horror comedy film, but some charismatic characters can go a long way. Lead actor Joe Keery, who's also known for playing fan favorite Steve Harrington on TV's Stranger Things, sports a blonde haircut and talks and talks and talks, to the point he's even labeled loquacious by his work colleague Naomi.
That would be loquacious, verbose, effusive. How about chatty?
His performance shows that when given the right script, he can be quite an endearing type. But here in this film, he is bland and kind of devoid of charm.
Why not? It's charming.
Not necessarily.
Rising scream queen Georgina Campbell offers some personality, but not much more than that. And though she exhibits some chemistry with Joe Keery, it doesn't really rise to any great heights. I'm more interested to see what she does in her next film, Psycho Killer, which looks like more of a Seven type shocker. You know, Seven, that dark serial killer thriller directed by David Fincher and starring Morgan Freeman, a young Brad Pitt, and a young Gwyneth Paltrow. What's in the box? Yes, that one.
With the box. What was in the box? What's in the box?
I've already mentioned Liam Neeson kind of phoning it in. And I know many actors do these types of roles to collect a paycheck. But come on, I mean, this is Oscar Schindler we're talking about. Not to mention Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn.
There's always a bigger fish.
I mean, what was I really expecting? Or what did I want to see? I'll tell you. I wanted to see Qui-Gon Jinn partnering with Steve Harrington to kick ass. That's what I wanted. Oh well, we didn't quite get that. Now, what about the supporting characters? Well, the less said about them, the better. Most of them exist in the film to provide fodder for the parasite. The one well-known name is Oscar winner Vanessa Redgrave, who you may remember as the arms dealer Max from the first Tom Cruise Mission Impossible film from 1996. Her role in Cold Storage, though, feels rather pointless and ends without a satisfying conclusion. The film's director, Johnny Campbell, has done most of his work on TV, as well as one previous film called Alien Autopsy way back in 2006. I'm sure he did his best with what he was given, but the film needed more horror, more laughs, and a much faster setup. To sum up, it needed a lot more razzle-dazzle. In the end, Cold Storage could have been a fun and slick horror comedy that chills and thrills while making you giggle and laugh. It's a pity then that it doesn't quite succeed. Now, it's not a total loss, but there are certainly better films of its ilk you could be seeking out. So how would I rate Cold Storage on the Jockpot movie scores table? It's not a bad film, but a little disappointing given my expectations. I would give it a mediocre 5 out of 10. Now, your turn. Have you seen Cold Storage? What did you think? Let me know in the comments below. And please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much.